Hey guys, my name's Oscar King, and I'm here to bring you my POV of round two of the Motorsport Australia OFI Cup this year. Round one was at Australia. I've already posted my POV from that race. We got P3, um, which was a good result, a good return to the OFI for myself. And here we are at round two at Qatar. Um, Unfortunately, this is a short qualifying session rather than a full qualifying session because Qatar has problems adding up the sector times properly in full qualifying sessions at Qatar. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different kind of feel for the race and the round because of the short quali. Um, Obviously didn't have to prep Q1 and Q2, just had to do some short quali laps. My preparation was definitely limited compared to Australia. Um, so yeah, probably just in this first run, just trying to get a run on the board that we can work on later in the session. This isn't going to be the peak performance that we can get out of the car, and just given how rusty I was, I think I just wanted to get a lap on the board that I knew was going to be at least somewhat in the mix and not have any pressure to have to do a valid lap later in the session. So yeah, obviously a 5/8 split is nowhere near the pace at all. So um, yeah, we're just trying to bring this one home at some at on some level and see where it puts us. So yeah, in general in practice I did struggle in the last sector compared to what I know that the times are. Um, Not really sure why. I think it's just kind of lack of precision over the kind of bumps in the last sector. There's a lot of little bumps over the curbs that you've got to get right and yeah, it's just it was I was just making a lot of mistakes there. So uh, we're going on to our second last run here. Our banker was a 1.5, which is going to be nowhere near good enough for pole, but that's fine. At least it's a lap on the board for us to improve on. And yeah, it's been an alright start to the lap. Not brilliant, but we're R50 up and we're heading into turn four here, and we unfortunately invalidate on the inside. Um, you may have noticed on the outside of that corner the 50-meter board braking marker into turn four was actually missing, and I knew it was missing on my outlap, so I noted that for my lap to not kind of use that reference, but I was just so used to it from the practice that it's hard to adjust your eyes and know exactly when to turn in. So unfortunately, we didn't validate there, and so we're on to our last run with not a good lap on the board, and we're P6, and that's not really where we want to be. And so we're heading into turn one here on our last lap, and we've completely missed the corner. Luckily, we've kept the minimum speed up just enough to get off the corner and not lose too much time. And our turn two was fairly solid, at least compared to our previous runs. So we are, five, 600ths up going into turn four here, and obviously the board is still missing. And just a lack of confidence from that invalidation. I knew that I couldn't afford to invalidate, and I've dropped 50 there, and it's a 6.5 first, which is absolutely nowhere near good enough even for what I was doing. Um, so yeah, we've kind of got to get it together here. Our last sector is at least for our standards, pretty alright. From the banker on, it's just that the first two sectors were poor. Um, we've had a good turn 10 here, and so we're a tenth up at least, and we need to hold on to as much of this time as possible in the last sector. A 4/8 split is it's nowhere near good enough for pole, but we need to start in a better position than where we currently are. So heading into this crucial second last corner, flying over the curb, and that was pretty solid. We've held down to all of the delta that we had over our previous time. We've thrown the car into the last corner. We knew that there was time to make up here, and we're 170 up, and I was actually pretty pleased with that given how the lap started. So we've done a 9.7, which actually is enough for P3. Um, you can see Campbell coming here. He's contesting for pole, and he spins. He makes a mistake. He's still in front of us, of course, but it was definitely a shootout between him and Greg for pole position in this race. So yeah, we're P3. Ultimately, with the prep and with actually the quality of the lap, I've got to be pretty happy with that. Um, Yusuf and Riley are in P4 and 5 respectively. I probably expected them to be ahead of the time that I did, but um, yeah, so we're heading straight to the race here. Uh, we can see that Campbell and Yusuf are on mediums, and then Greg, myself, and Riley are on hards. So at this first point in the race, you know, if I can try and hold up Yusuf on that medium hard strategy, then he's gonna not be able to make as much progress. And so this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to, you know, keep him behind me so that, you know, when his tires like die off, then I can start making progress. And maybe form a gap later in the stint. But Yusuf with that grip on the medium tire, he's able to go clean around the outside in turn 4 and 5, and then have the inside for turn 6. So at this point, I've just got to give it up. I've just got to tuck back inside and trust that I'll get him later in the race. You can see the cars behind um, are also on hards, and I was also little bit worried about that. Um, if they were all on mediums, and they're also a threat. Um, if Yusuf did get past, so it's useful for me that they are also on hards. I can easily hold position from here, and I can just tuck in. Ultimately, on a hard medium, we're just trying to save as much tire as possible um, for the kind of middle part of the race. And so even on lap two here, gaps are starting to form. So Campbell was obviously on the medium. He's gapped ahead, and Greg's followed him. And then there's a bit of a gap behind Greg to Riley, and then Yusuf on the mediums is right behind Riley, of course. And so we're kind of managing, and actually we've broken the train behind. Like I was fully managing, and somehow the pace behind was not good enough to stay with the top five, and so we've actually gapped, which is a good thing for our race. It really simplifies what we're doing. Um, and so move on to lap 8. Our tyres have crossed over with the mediums that Yusuf's running. We've got a big gap behind, so we're fully clear to any cars outside of the top 5 now, and we're just looking to get the highest position we can against these boys. So Yusuf's tyres are obviously they've dropped off. It's probably time for me to try and make some progress and get onto the back of Riley. It's really critical here that I don't get held up trying to make this overtake, because if I do, and then Yusuf loses the DRS or I lose the DRS, then our race is really compromised. So um, we're full pushing the battery to get past Yusuf. Yusuf doesn't fight it too hard, which he really shouldn't, because if he does, there's risk of him losing DRS as well, which you know for his race he needs. So yeah, we've got onto the back of the top guys. Campbell on the mediums has also dropped off because his tyres have crossed over, and so we're just a train of 5 here. And actually on lap 11, Yusuf elects to pit, um, which was about expected. What he's trying to do is, he's trying to undercut this train and get onto the back of Campbell, because Campbell's obviously on the mediums, and um, it helps his race if he can get onto the back of someone with better tyres and see if he can get carried along. So ultimately, the hard runners here are trying to prepare the car as best they can for the back end of the stint, where you know they're going to be aiming to try and make up time on the two med hard runners in Campbell and Yusuf. So as third man in the train, though, I can't really do much to affect the pace of Greg and Riley for the rest of the stint. All I can do is try and prepare my tyres as best as I can for any laps that I need to do in clean air, um, and just be ready to pit and chase after um, the med hard runners. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a strategic battle this first stint. Just trying to position the car effectively, have as good tyres as possible. Um, but it really has simplified out now, given that Yusuf's pitted. Campbell's expected to pit this lap, and he does. You'll see him peel off in a second. Um, so yeah, the equation is simple. If I want to contest for the win, I'm gonna have to uh, not only beat these boys on the hards, but also then chase down the guys on a med hard. They're gonna get a big undercut. So moving on to lap 17 here, the tyres are really at the end of their life, and Greg and Riley peel off and pit. Um, there's not really much point me following them in, because if I just follow them in, I'm just going to be stuck behind them as third man in the train, just as I was the whole stint. And so we're coming into turn 1 on a really critical in lap here, because we're going to pit this lap, and we make a massive error, huge slide. Just the tyres are completely shot, and we're pushing just way too hard to try and lose as little time as possible to everyone that's undercut us. And we've got a big balance change, because there's no longer cars in front of us giving dirty air. And so, yeah, that was a pretty massive error, and it's probably cost us 4 or 5 tenths in time. And you know in the end, we probably didn't quite have the race pace for that to be a massive factor and for it to cost us, but it's just not ideal. Um, so yeah, you can see in the top left on the leaderboard that Greg's approximately 5 seconds behind the net leader in Campbell. Um, and so the whole equation is whether the new tyres, the new mediums, are going to be able to catch up to the used hards. Um, you'll also notice that Yusuf got gapped by Campbell, um, which is critical for me on a hard med. That's going to make it a lot easier for me to catch and pass Yusuf. If he was still in Campbell's DRS, then it'd be a lot harder to kind of catch and make progress. So we've peeled into the pits, um, and from here it's all about just maximizing the pace. We want to get onto the back of cars as quickly as we possibly can to make progress. So we've done our pit stop here. We're just looking to see where we come out. And there they are on the right. Um, so as the delta kind of recalculates, we're about 2.5 seconds behind Riley. So that undercut was fairly big as expected. The C2 tyre, the medium doesn't have as much warm-up limitation, and obviously I was on really old hards on the back of those guys, so that's about the amount of time that I'd expect to get undercut by. I've obviously pushed as much battery as I can to try and lose as little time as possible. Um, and so what I'm hoping is that they'll catch up to Yusuf and Campbell on the hards and get slightly held up, and that means I'll be able to get DRS and get to the back of them. So yeah, we're on lap 20 here. Our tyres are still in pretty good shape, and we've gotten to the back of Yusuf, but we don't quite have the battery and the pace to get him this lap, which is really it's going to cost us quite a bit of time because what we're going to do is we're gonna have to sit behind here. Um, Probably until the next DRS zone, unless we get a really clear opening or he lets us through. Um, and so yeah, as much as we can use it as an opportunity to save some battery and some tire, um, we're just losing time to the guys ahead. We're even losing time to Campbell because Yusuf obviously has older tires than Campbell. Um, so yeah, we're just kind of forced to chill here and save the battery and wait for an extra opportunity uh, to make progress. But as you can see, we're losing time to Riley and Greg. Um, and as it turns out, this little period here where we're losing time, even if we are kind of generating delta and saving battery, it is going to cost us. We don't really have the race pace to make up for a lap like this. Um, so yeah, obviously across this lap there really just was no opportunity to make an overtake, even though we do have a significant tyre delta to Yusuf. Yeah, so we can get on the battery now and pass him. And now as the equation stands, we've got 8 laps to try and catch up that gap to the guys ahead, and then hopefully try and make an overtake. It's going to be a pretty tall task, um, but obviously there's gonna be battling ahead as well. So uh, yeah, we move on to the last lap. This is the end of the last lap, and that we just were not unable to make the progress required. We were pushing, but honestly we just didn't quite have the raw pace. That's partly preparation. Fortunately, it's partly talent as well. Um, so yeah, Greg goes on to win the race. Campbell's in P2. Riley did get a track limits penalty, which promoted us up into P3. So it was nice to be on the podium again. We got P3 back to back in the first 2 rounds of the season. Here are the results from the race at Qatar. We did get fastest lap. Unfortunately, there's no point for that anymore. Um, but yeah, another 15 points for the championship. Here's the championship standings after round 2. Greg has won the first 2 races, so he's opened up a little bit of a championship lead. So we'll see if we can start to peg that back over the course of the season. Still 8 races to go. The next round 3, is at Canada, so I'll see that